Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'm chatting with writer-director Robert Manson about his authored works film Holy Island. So this film is about two lost souls, Rosa and David. It's very open to interpretation. It's fun, it's experimental, it's abstract, and it's about the pair of them trapped in purgatory in this rundown port town. And there's a ticket off the island, there's a back and forth between them, and then there's a huge shift in character dynamics. So it's a very, very interesting watch and very evocative and sensory. There's hints of David Lynch. There's great performances, and one of my favorite elements as well, I thought really added to that mix was the sound. Like, you've a really beautiful soundtrack then kind of like underpinning the whole thing and really kind of moving the emotion of the piece along. So first up, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks very much for having me.
First, I'd like to say, like, it's a beautiful film. It's in cinemas when this podcast is released. It'll be in cinemas today for a limited release. So where exactly can people catch it on a big screen?
So you can see it in the IFI in Dublin, also in the Lighthouse in Dublin. There's going to be 2 screenings daily from Friday the 14th until the 20th, which is Thursday next week. You can also see it if you're down in Cork in the Triskel Arts Centre or in Galway in Palace. They have 1 screening daily for around the same amount of time as well.
And it premiered at the Cork Film Festival?
It premiered at the Cork Film Festival in 2021, yes.
Just kind of like a post-COVID response to get to physically see it in the cinema. What was it like attending that?
Yeah, it was great, really. Being with audience members again in a kind of celebratory feeling, mood, you know, it was a bit strange. I guess people are still a little bit worried and all like that. But yeah, and the atmosphere, you know, hearing people's reactions to your film, you can't rival that. So it has to be done together in a cinema environment. So I'm looking forward to experiencing that again this weekend.
The scheme itself is an artist-driven scheme. It's a piece of art first, I think, and a piece of narrative second. But there's even though it's open to interpretation, there's a real truthfulness to the exploration of trauma that I felt when I watched it, through our lead character. Can you just tell me a little bit about maybe actually probably the best thing to do is if we go through the process of what it was like applying for the authored work scheme and a little bit about it?
Yeah, the authored work scheme is an exciting new scheme from the Arts Council. It's their most ambitious and largest film budget bursary for projects that are artist-led, or authored works is kind of linking to auteur kind of filmmaking, which is, you know, maybe having multi-discipline directors or, you know, producers who can do numerous different elements of the film production, be it like editing or production writing, everything together, like all in one sort of singular vision projects. So, I mean, you also have to have a very strong visual background and maybe like experimental, have, you know, filmography that shows links to being experimental in your nature, not really say like a commercial background or anything like that. So that makes it again exciting in a way, because it's based on, you know, a visual motif. It's based on, you know, not necessarily your track record or like your filmography of, you know, playing here, there and everywhere. It's about what is the production about, you know, what is your key story? Who are you as an applicant, and what can you do with this bursary to make it, you know, a standalone project that will hopefully be talked about for years to come, I guess. I don't know.
Great. Yeah, because it's a space that, like, say the likes of Screen Ireland, like in some ways, like their focus is on the project, is about, you know, doing something that is, say, for the industry, for an audience. But this is more so about, yeah, like having the space to experiment. And you were saying like it's important that you're multidisciplinary, that you have at the hand in editing as well. What do you have to submit for the first draft of the application?
You have to have some sort of like a production package that gives you like a visual orientation of what the film is. You know, you have to have your notes on production, notes on visual treatment dotted out. You don't have to have the scripts completed. That's actually, you can start that process once you've been given the funding. which is also great because it means like you don't have to sign off on the finished script. You can go away and make it yourself, and it doesn't have to be approved. It can be, it's off your own intentions. Like, so once you've been awarded the bursary, you're sort of set free, and you're said come back when it's ready, and you want it to be looked at or whatever. So,
And
uh,
not on a time frame. They're like, come back when you.
well, no, the time frame is in place. Like you have like roughly 14 months or something like that, so a year and a half or something like that. But no, you don't have to come back constantly with like production notes or your HODs or your casts for approval. None of these things have to be ticked off. It's your project. You have to go make it. Um, I've got a lot of mentors in the film industry who have quite a large filmography and stuff like that. When I was telling them about this project, they were like, "Oh, that sounds great. I'd love to be able to do that myself," But unfortunately, I think their experience is a little bit too vast to get back in line for something like this. It's more for emerging filmmakers, I guess.
And tell me a little bit about the process. So once you've got it, you workshop the script, you have your treatment, you go back and rework it.
Well, myself and Claire McCabe went in for like the pitching session. So there's like a number of projects that were selected to go in and pitch to a panel in the Arts Council, and we went in October or November, and we were notified 3 weeks later that we had received the bursary.
Wow.
Then in January, like just a fresh start for that year, squirreled away, started writing the scripts. And then we had like the first draft ready by around May. And it was made in partnership with Samson Films. So we had David Dignan as a script editor who came on board at that stage, and along with my own collaborator Lena Schultz, and we went through the script, we pulled it apart, reworked it, and it was sort of more or less ready for pre-production in June, July. So then started the digital lockdown pre-production. So it was hundreds and hundreds of Zoom calls and cast and crew listings and location scouting. A lot of that was done on Google Earth, and so it was. I met a lot of the cast as well on Zoom calls and things like that. So, yeah, that was a bit of an interesting twist. Accidentally, like the film became almost like a Dogma 95 film. There was like rules and regulations set out by the government of how you could practice in and amongst the pandemic. Like, so you can't really do this or that. So we had to kind of figure out ways to go around some of these, like, these tricky circumstances. But it just meant very careful planning. Claire McCabe was absolutely amazing in that regard. Like everything was to the T. Like everyone knew exactly what time they were doing this, that, and the other. What they had to be accomplished at what time. Be it from like just like the HODs collecting their other crew members in each department, or from my own perspective, like shot lists and things like that, or having a script sort of delineated and chopped up or worked to the point of production. So,
and just tell me a little bit about the idea again. So you had the script out, but like as a writer, where do your ideas come from? Like what's your process there? Like, and something like this as well, you get to play with the form so much more.
Well, I'm only slowly starting to come to terms with what my approach to filmmaking is. Like, like psychologically, I think it's like something about extrapolating on maybe like traumas or whatever over a kind of narrative form, that you kind of ask as many questions as possible, put in as many elements from your life, from your experience, or from like, literature or culture around you, and you kind of just try and find some sort of tapestry that makes sense to you, and then show that to audiences, and it's actually their feedback that kind of really explains what the material is like. So it's the secondary perspective that teaches you what your work is. But I don't know, when I was in university, we were kind of like, we had the Aristotelian like hero's journey hammered into us. So I think like as a basis, like this is a kind of a loosely pitched trilogy of films, like, because I had another film called Lost in the Living that was played in Berlin by an Irish character who goes over into that kind of like gauntlet of pleasure dome, everything in excess and everything. So in a way, like for me, I guess this film is like the return journey, so the second part of the hero's journey, like into the abyss, or like how far you can go away from what you know, is the second part. That's another script that I have in development at the moment. So
It's a real unique atmospheric world that you've created in this. With those very kind of again open to interpretation elements that are very powerful. The symbolism is beautiful, and like as a viewer, you're left feeling, well, I don't really know what happened for that, but it felt authentic. That's the important thing, and that's the thing that keeps you connected to the material
sure,
as a
completely.
viewer. Like it, those moments of trauma, those moments of pain, like they feel very true, and it's a great cast. Like there's a great chemistry. Can you just tell me about finding them again on Zoom?
Like I have to go back to the pandemic element, like because it was actually a blessing in disguise. Like because sometimes when you get like bursaries like this, you start trying to pull the stars out of the sky and create a universe that's just unreachable. So immediately, like during lockdowns, we realized that we were landlocked to a kind of like a certain mile radius of Dublin, and I'm from Wicklow, so I got to manage like to extend that partially. Um, but like there were certain cut off points, like so it's like I needed to know what the world of the film was, and it was, not accidentally, but because I've been thinking about it for a long time, to go and re introduce myself to places that I would have walked through at different stages of my life, and I wanted to do it with characters in film like this, that plays out kind of like a narrative basis that can be kind of like reciprocal of and mirror my own experiences in life. Um, but it's like when you do that and you make a film in any particular place, be it in your house, be it in, whatever, the beach that you like, hanging out on when you're a teenager. Once you've made a film there, the film is the only thing that remains. Like it's sort of almost like consumes your knowledge and your memory off that place. So it's like the film is then there, afterwards. Like that's not my teenage beach anymore. It's where the film is. So
Yeah.
you have to be a little bit sort of selective in what you're doing. It's like not putting everything into a film, trying to keep certain elements of your life away.
It's so
Because what you
true,
keep,
actually, because when you're editing somebody as well, their voice, everything becomes so familiar.
yeah,
And like that, like sometimes I'll have gone up to somebody having edited something they were in, or like that, been part of the process of something that they're in, and they've no clue who you are, but they're caught like on that piece of, like on that kind of project, and they're seared into your mind, like, and they're so familiar, but they
and I
don't
think
know you. It
it
changes
also
your
works.
relationship to that.
It also works with like say like catchphrases like from your parents or something like that might feed into your kind of your own personality a little bit, and you put it into a project, and then you hear someone else saying it as an actor in the film, it becomes theirs then. So it's like taking elements away that can never be retrieved. So it's actually like the philosophy that I learned from this film. It was actually from my partner in Germany. Like she said, it's like it's what you withhold when you're making work or art that brings the power and the energy to the work itself. So that's interesting. It's like the shadow that circles a project that isn't actually in it, but is a part of it anyway, because everything's connected.
And yeah, that's that kind of truthfulness. And but working with the actors, actually, that was, I think, what I originally had been trying to say, with about three other things lined up together. But working with those actors and getting the performance, because again, the text is quite abstract, but
Yeah.
their interaction, their chemistry is very truthful. How do you maneuver that with them? Do you have discussions with them about what this means? Do you let them bring their own thing to it? Like, what's part of that?
Well, the script really is like a kind of a dense and complex nightmare on a page. So any actor or any kind of crew member who've read it all sort of had the same reaction. They're kind of like, "Are you just crazy or what?" Like and you can see that in their facial expression when they say hello to you for the first moment, like on a Zoom call or something. They're like, "Okay, actually, no, you're all right. You're not too bad." But the script is crazy, like because I kind of like intentionally tried to shovel as much stuff into it as possible, because I was always conscious of like with other funding agencies that you're always taking stuff away, you're always chiseling it down. So like if it's like 10 parts, wonder, then you have 2 parts in the actual film. So you just have to really like speckle it with as much like nonsense, not nonsense, but poetic chaos as possible. But then, like when you have a bursary like this, where a lot more material gets through, like because what's interesting about this project was, the funding is given to the filmmaker who makes the application, so it's in their name. It's not in the name of the production company who you partner with or whatever, which way it usually works. So you become like a kind of like executive producer in your own work, so you get kind of like one key vote in everything that goes on, like. And I'm not taking that to any extremes or anything like that, but when it comes to creative material, a lot of it remained that I was sort of maybe a little bit not shocked, but it's still there. It's like we get to play with so much stuff, like, and I guess like for a lot of the actors, like they were like, what part of this is the most important elements in all of these key kind of like sections of texts that we're dealing with in the scene. And then I would kind of like just let them, associate themselves with the work, like, what jumps out off the page to you first and foremost, what do you kind of see, what do you feel? And this is the piece that I particularly like. Let's try and focus on those two elements, and then you just sort of sit into a location, get your grounding, get your bearing, let everything become very kind of relaxed and familiar. And then it's like a back and forth. It's a relay. There could be certain elements lost. There could be, extra elements gained by conversational, I don't know, appropriation, just extra bits like that just find their way in the moments. Like, so, people's personalities will find their way in, and that's not on the text. It's not in the script. And I always like to try and keep those bits in, because that's the glue that, that fastens the human beings behind the characters that they're portraying. It brings 3D aspect to all performances in film, I think.
Yeah. And tell me a bit about the shift in actors with David.
Yeah, shifting in characters. I mean, I'm kind of like fascinated by this the duality of the self. It's like the person that you think you are yourself is the people who remember you as the person that you were in the time that they spent with you, be it in a place like, a school time, or, one country to another country, speaking in a different language brings out a different character. All these different elements of yourself exist all at the same time. And sometimes it takes a little moment to remember the person who people think that you are. So you have to kind of click into these characters or click out of them. And I thought it was be fascinating, like, well, has been experimenting with this concept in a number of different films, like not only like the obscure object of desire, but like, I mean, you can just change, you can shift, you can do like one performance here, one performance there. I mean, Frankenstein in London also did that, like one different actor each night, like, and stuff like that. So you don't know which actor is going to be playing the lead role on whichever night. It was just a lottery and stuff. So I mean, I like that idea. I'm going to take it a little bit further in my next project as well. It might be like maybe 7 actors or.
It's sort of jarring, but it's a very interesting take, and that relationship and the shift, the way it happens, it's very interesting to watch. Was the actor disappointed? We like, I kind of think if you're cast, you'd be like, oh yes, I'm the lead role for half the film.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you always break films into different sections anyway. Like, like there's the first act, there's the second act, and there's the second act, or sorry, middle part and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's the outward journey, the return journey, and then into the oblivion exists even in singular films. Like, so when characters are bound to change in that process anyway. So, if you're shooting in sequence, then you naturally progress. But if you're shooting out of sequence, then you have to change every few minutes,
Yeah.
or every day, like 3 or 4 times a day. It was interesting on set sometimes, the different characters, like how they would, interact with one another. But it just brings a freshness, I think, to different days and to different scenes that you were starting.
And how long was the shoot?
I think we had 14 days.
Wow.
2 of which were pickups. So yeah, it was like 13 days.
Wow, that is not a lot. And then you were shooting on film as well?
We're shooting on Super 16, and we're shooting 4K Red Dragon as well.
Like that's a lot. Like it's kind of, like a lot to switch over. It's a lot to capture in quite a short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, like you have to be prepared for that. Like, I mean, if there's a beautiful kind of like, um, moment where the sun is splitting the sky down onto the ship at the end, like, you just have to be ready to film, shoot from the hip. Like, the film camera is there. If there's beautiful light, you have to capture it. Um, I mean, you can have all the schedules in place that give you some sort of orientation, but sometimes you just have to ignore that for a few moments and go off and capture something that can not be set up really, like can't be organized.
Yeah, and it's
People
outdoors
acting.
as well, so you're really at the whim of the elements too.
Yeah, and in many more ways than one. Like, I mean, I was looking for gloom, I was looking for darkness, and we shot in like around October, knowing that that was like storm season and stuff like that. But it turned out to be Indian summer, and we were all like sunglasses and I was getting sunburned somehow. But so yeah, we had to kind of like change the visual aspect of that in post and things like that to bring in some of the storm elements. But
So now we're on post. With something like this, is the form quite free and would it shift in the edit? Like if you were saying that you had to take those moments to capture something that happens in that moment because of and the nature of it as well. Like, was it a freer formed piece? Like, could you go, actually, let's do a completely different scene, or did you stick to the script and then stick to the structure and edit as well?
well, you have to just be on your toes at all times, really. I mean, like the sun can go behind the clouds, and then you have to start blacking out the sun or like kind of causing shadows and things like that. And then you have to just put it all away, and then you shoot like when there's like beautiful gray, or in and out of buildings and things like that. So you just sort of have to be ready and prepared for all elements at the same time. When it's Ireland, like that's what you get. Like, if you're shooting in Europe and stuff like that, you get like a sunny day, sunny all day. So or you shoot on the rainy day and it's raining from 9 to 6, like so. But in Ireland, you get five types of weather a day, so you just have to shoot it all. And yeah, we have quite a crushed kind of black and white image in post production, so there was like a little bit of extra manipulation that could be formulated to find a cohesion in the visual. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shifting and changing going on. So, and you can't control it. So you just have to shoot on. So yeah.
And with the edit as well. So, and something like this that's open to interpretation and sort of like a fluid narrative. How does that work in the edit? Did it change? Did you stick to exactly what was on the page or play around with
Um,
pacing?
well, David Byrne is a longtime collaborator of mine, editor. He's also from Dunleary. We did some short films. He also shot or edited my last feature film, Lost and Living. So we have a good kind of like on hand. We know we're fighting for cohesion or so our personalities are slightly different aesthetically. I think like I'm looking for kind of like long, slow paced maneuvers between settings, and he'd be more kind of like, getting swiftly to the next, plot point, or, really shifting the balance, like a hard cut or a maneuver. So like there's a nice little game of tennis that is going on between us like for the last couple of years. And he actually moved to Tokyo in the last couple of years. And so we had this interesting kind of editing structure whereby we were sort of editing and taking notes, and I was reviewing the edits day by day in a constant 24-hour circle, because when I was sleeping, he was editing and vice versa. So he would send through his daily cut of a section, and I could review it while he was in bed and give my notes directly. So it's sort of like the timeline of the edit was continually flowing, so we managed to get through it really quite quickly.
The sound mix is just gorgeous, and the soundtrack, like everything, and it's so layered and it's just woven through it beautifully. Can you tell me about the music?
Yeah, I mean, James Latimer was in charge of the soundtrack and the soundscape, the sound mix. And we were looking for a big sound, like a big kind of punch, richness to some of a lot of these locations, because they're actually quite silent, a lot of these locations. So when you're in that kind of environment, different elements have to come into play. Like, there has to be some sort of like a rattling winds has to bring in a kind of a subwoof to get a kind of like a reaction out of the audience, I guess. Like, we're also playing with these ideas that there's music on the wind, like everything is sort of there in either just in your periphery vision, or it's like something that you think you heard or you think you saw but you didn't. It's like questioning reality constantly. And because the root idea for the film came out of being disorientated in a number of airports around Europe over the course of 3 or 4 years. If you miss a flight or a boat or cancelled this, that, and the other, and you have to spend any amount of time outside of the usual amount of time you have to spend in these places, it can be very disorientating. Like, so we wanted to really push on that aspect, in the mix, and I think we got there. Yeah, the beauty of working with James was that you could kind of be controlling the soundtrack and the sound mix simultaneously, so they're kind of enveloped together. Whereas, usually you bring the sound, the music in at the end and sort of just trying to shove it under the carpet, or pitch it to the side, or to in the mix you would put it in a 4.1 or a 3.1 mix.
And the tracks, does he select them? Does he know the artists? Like, how do you clear the rights for those?
Well, I actually chose those two songs myself. But yeah, I mean, like, kind of like the songs, like, yeah, for like the Super 8 section at the end of the credits. Yeah, like, I kind of like when you're working on a film, I like to work on either a laptop or a space that has like no distracting elements. Like, so there would sometimes be no internet, there would be no music or media on your computer and stuff like that. So I think there was one album of like mix from friends from years ago, from about 15 years ago, and I had like just maybe 10 songs, and they were just kind of there. So every time I was like being not so productive, I just like squirrel away and just have a little listen to one song with the edit. And but they were kind of like songs that you probably wouldn't be able to get, you wouldn't be able to license them. But there was an adventure really in finding the musicians first and foremost, finding them over like Facebook and stuff like that, asking them who they're being represented by and if they would be able to, do a deal with us and stuff like that. I mean, the song at the end is Lancome's, our Irish band, of course, like, and we managed to get a deal with them as well. So it's great when you have like Irish artists in different fields working together and you can have it in one production. It's great, I think.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, because it's gorgeous as well. Like, and I'd say it's lovely to see your work as a creative, kind of like elevating something else. Yeah, like that it's nice, and it still has a life, and it still has like, it's still kind of influencing and touching people.
There's an interesting story about this. There's a song in the middle of the film that's in the bar scene. It's like kind of like from a German band. It's like a Schlager rock and roll song. And a friend of my partner found and like a little kind of LP, like a single, 7-inch with this song on it. And he used to always play it as DJ nights and stuff like that. And we were like, do you reckon we could get that song? It's so great. Like, we really want it. We actually managed to track down the original band members from that band, find their original contracts, and then like, try and work out an agreement with them to put it in the film. So it was a kind of like really, I don't know, CSI Miami job to get that one done. But it's, yeah, like there's lots of fans of that song online and stuff, but no one knew the history of the band or anything. We managed to track it down and get it signed off.
Amazing. That's because it's really interesting, because it's so complex like that to get the rights, and there's the different types of rights and stuff like that, and you're like, oh my God. It's so, tell me a little bit about the process of finalizing the film and getting it to festivals. So did you know you were going into Cork? Did you finish it for that, or how do you kind of come up with your distribution plan?
Well, the IFI are screening partners, so they had to have premiere status on the film, either in Dublin, or with our case, they let us screen at the Cork Film Festival in partnership with them. So it was the IFI world premiere at Cork, and it's a festival that I've screened pretty much all of my work in the past, like all my short films and my last feature film also played there. And because it's like a new Irish initiative from the Arts Council, I think it was important to screen the film here first. But then, yeah, it went out to different festivals around the world and things like that. So like 2 weeks later, it was in Ifigoa in India, and then America, a few places and stuff. So
And
Um,
do you get to tour with it when it goes? Like, do you get to
uh,
sit in the audience in these different spaces? Because it's a very Irish feel to it. I'd love to see how it's received.
well, for any of the screenings that we weren't able to attend in person, I came up with the idea of contacting like Irish agent or the embassies in some of the nearby cities and see if they could send someone from the cultural department as a representative for the film. So we managed to get like the Irish ambassador in Mumbai to travel to Goa to watch the film there. But we were almost there. We had two tickets like booked and paid for, and we just weren't able to get the visa rushed through in time. You know, the turnaround wasn't quick enough. But that was a great experience. I mean, like there's 1.2 billion people living in India, so in the space of 1 week, the trailer had more of an audience than anything I'd ever made before. So just like yeah, that's what exposure is, you know. So and the Jerry was the ambassador that attended that screening. He said it was a packed house and we got a standing ovation with clapping and everything. So and a number of people reached out to me after the screening as well, saying that they just don't get films like that in India. You know, they mostly get like Hollywood or different, you know, kind of like level films. They don't get anything independent or yeah, but that's sort of like artistic kind of experimentation films, you know.
It's very like it is very interesting to see how different people do it because yeah, I think we do have this specific relationship to sort of shame and colonialism and how that impacts the way we process trauma. I think and I think like while things are like that you often hear this said like a local story with global appeal um about work, you do get that sense and because of its kind of core of authenticity, like that's the thing that I think is will translate well, that you can see like that there is pain, like that lead character, there's a truthfulness to that journey. But it's, you know, so it'll be very interesting to see what resonates and if different things do.
Well, it's interesting because you can take a film on different levels as well. Like, you know, like from the visual motif. I mean, the film won an award for its cinematography in Madrid, and you know, there's a couple of experimental film festivals in a number of different countries, like Bratislava and stuff like that, would introduce us like from purely on a visual basis, like you know, so cinematography festivals and things. And then you'd have like more kind of like cultural festivals that are linked to like the Irish culture and the story and everything behind that. So yeah, it's always interesting what the angle is that the invitation comes, because they're kind of interpreting your film from that perspective,
Yeah.
or the work, not your film, because it's collective.
I know this is kind of going back to the scheme element of it, but how did this film and this process differ from your first?
Well, the first project again was sort of like self-financed. It was around the time that we were doing like, or the world was experimenting with the crowdfunding kind of aspect of filmmaking and everything. But yeah, at one point, you know, someone close to me said, like, you just have to go and make that film now. Just spend whatever your savings are on it and do it. Because you'd just be waiting in the what if realm for your life if you don't do it. So I took that advice and we just made it. Difficult as it was, we just went over and did it. Um, but
Because you didn't make it easy for yourself doing something on location in Berlin when
no,
with
in a culture and a language you don't completely understand with no links or ties to the film industry at all. But we managed it, and I think it turned out quite good. Like so, they got a distribution deal and everything. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's stolen me away to Germany now. I kind of live there more or less. I want to make another film in Germany now because of that. I mean, the interesting thing when you've made two films is that, you know, you can kind of ask yourself questions like, what was it like doing this and what was it like doing this now? Like, so, I mean, the best thing about the Arts Council grants is that you have security. You know, when I was developing the script, you know, I had, I could pay myself a salary. You didn't have to make it in advance and then have to pitch it after like living on nothing for 6 or 7 months, which is the usual approach. Like, so there's, you know, when you take away that element of pressure off your shoulders, then the project itself, the work gets to breathe, and it's not compounded by, you know, nervous energy or anything like that. So yeah, freedom and the ability just to make a piece of work guided on your own instincts and creative intentions or instinct. Instinct. It always comes back to that. Like they trust you to go make the film. You don't have to constantly like get someone's appraisal or something signed off. Like I remember when I was trying to make my first film, the development agents of one of the bursaries, the first thing that they said in an interview scenario, they said, "I hate Berlin," and I was like, "Oh God, I mean, what's going to happen here? Like, should I just get up and leave now or what?" Like, it's you can't be on the back foot from the get go. So that's the beauty of the Arts Council grants, is that you have time. Time is the only currency that you really need, like in a funding sense. Like, so we managed to buy almost a year and a half of freedom to go and make the best work that we could possibly do.
And pay your collaborators then.
Yeah, from the get-go as well. Yeah.
So
Sometimes you have to pay people afterwards or all this kind of nonsense, and yeah, that's not really the way you want to make work, or you can't continually make work that way. I mean, the first film we were kind of working with people out of university or with little to no film experience, so it was more experience based, and people could get a few credits for their IMDb or whatever, their filmography and everything, and they could work simultaneously as attending university in Berlin. So that's how we managed it, and they could bring with them some crew for some facilities or bits of anyway. Yeah, that's a different story.
And so you were saying it's a trilogy. What's your next one?
Well, as part of that trilogy, there's another film that I want to make in Leipzig. That's it's based upon how far into the void you can travel without losing yourself completely. But I have to translate that script into German, so my partner's helping me in that. It's a slow and meandering process, but we're going to submit it now in December, I think, to the Mitteldeutschland Federum, which is like a Middle Germany agency. And apart from that, I have 2 experimental documentaries that I'm editing at the moment. Another project away from the Arts Council, and got the first cut done on both of them. So they should be simultaneously, hopefully, released in spring, if I can find a festival that would take them along.
Great. Well, I look forward to catching those. It sounds like you're very busy. Wow. Off the back of this, there's no relaxing.
Different things going on, yeah.
It's available to view on limited release from today, so do catch it. Like it's again, like it's such a gorgeous experience, so visceral. It's just a lovely journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's just support Irish film, get into the cinema. There hope there might be an option to see it further down the line on some sort of video on demand, but it's a film that really has to be seen on the big screen. Like the images and the kind of like the texture of the images by themselves, they have to be seen in a large room in the dark. So yeah, with your friends.
Yes, definitely. And a glass of wine if it's in the IFI. That's one of the perks.
Definitely.
So thank you so much.
Okay, brilliant.